Hey y'all, it's Miss Erlin. I miss y'all. I am gonna try to go over like a lecture for the first 2 days. I didn't do one before, so hopefully this will cover some of the information on the manifest destiny. It seemed like most of y'all did a really good job on the short answer, so it seems like you got it from the movie. But today we're just gonna kind of go a review the last class, like Mexican American War and Imperialism. But hopefully we'll focus more on the second part, which is day 2, which is still the Mexican American War, but more kind of like how did it lead to the Civil War. For classwork, there's going to be like a short answer, and for homework, you're going to make a Flipgrid ad more on the events that are after the Mexican American War and how they led to the Civil War. Um, so I guess just to start out, you know, sorry, to review, right? We're coming up on review. When we first land, we're going to land like here on Plymouth Rock, and then we're going to come here to Virginia and Jamestown, right? So our original colonies are really filling in along the Atlantic Ocean. We talked about a lot of the reason why is they're focused on England and trading, right? And this is all like mercantilism. What is here is the original kind of border between the West, and that is the Appalachian Mountains. So before the American Revolution, people were really kind of in here, right? After the American Revolution, America got land all the way to the Mississippi River, right? And this is where we talked about the Northwest Ordinance, right? People were like, how are we going to organize this new territory? We'll get to that later. Later, under Jefferson, 1803, Louisiana Purchase. We are going to double the size of the nation. This is controversial. We don't even really know where this is. Like when we look at this map, it looks like, oh, we knew what it was. But we were just like, we didn't even know. And one of the big questions is who owned this part, right? Did we get it in the Louisiana Purchase? Does it belong to England? We don't really know. And so this area of Oregon is going to be important because we don't even really know where it is. Last class, we looked more at starting with the annexation of Texas, right, which is here, and then also Mexican cession, right? So at the end of the Mexican-American War, we have essentially our whole continental United States manifest. I don't know. I guess destiny manifest. I don't know. Maybe not. Now it just looks like a bunch of scribbles. Anyway. You get the point. So we're going to kind of go over a review of how this expansion works. So if you remember the Northwest Ordinance, slavery has been an issue since 1787, since after the Constitution. So or even before the Constitution, under the Articles of Confederation. Sorry. So in the Northwest Ordinance, you're going to have this idea under the Articles of Confederation that this area is going to be under federal control. And the other thing is, in the Northwest Ordinance, there is no slavery, right? So there's no slavery above the Ohio River, right? We prohibit slavery, and we essentially are going to grid it out. And after people move there, right, then it's going to become a state. And so the federal government is the one that's in charge. And that is setting the stage for this idea that the national government, right, is the one who does two things: says who is going to be free and who is going to be slave, and organizes this territory. So even before the Constitution, we have this kind of precedent where, this is how it goes. All right. So we also talked about how we were also able to compromise with the Constitution, right? We are, sitting in a room together, North and South. The United States says that we are going to do the 3/5 compromise. We talked about that. We also talked about the fact that they're going to postpone ending the slave trade till after 1808, which they actually do. So again, during this constitutional convention, we are able to compromise. So we also do have what is the Fugitive Slave Law. This is really confusing. The original Constitution says, listen, one of the things under state, right? If someone runs away from one state and goes to another, it's this state has to give it back, right? Has to give the person back. They don't ever mention the word slave in the Constitution, but they do say that you have to return them under the state powers. So, the effect of our Constitution, right? We have many slaves that are imported. We've talked about this. Yeah, we are going to have it kind of taking root in the United States. Under the Louisiana Purchase, the big question is going to be, what are these lands going to be? Are they going to be for free labor? Are they going to be for slavery? What is going to happen? And so with that compromise, we were able to compromise with this 3630, where Missouri is slave, Maine is free, and then we're going to try to maintain the balance. And the big thing is this congressional balance, right? We have to keep the same number of states, right? Slave states are always worried about the same number of states because if they lose the balance in the Senate, they will lose power. All right. So the Missouri Compromise set this line here. Right? The Northwest Ordinance made this free. This is going to be free. This is slave. If you notice, it's not really very free, or there's not a lot of room for slavery to expand. So some people believe that one of the reasons why we have this expansion, like why are people moving into Texas? Well, they can't go north, so where are they going to go? West. So one of the reasons why Texas becomes so important is if you want to extend slavery, you're going to have to go west because you can't go north because all of this is free. All right. I hope that makes sense. It probably doesn't. Anyway, let's go next. So this idea that we should move west, that we have to move west, that it is our duty as Americans to move west, is manifest destiny. It is tied in with this idea of American exceptionalism, that Americans are special, and especially white Protestants are special. And it is their duty, it is their mission to take the amazingness of America and move it westward. As, America moves west, as white folks move west, what comes with it? Education, democracy, freedom, all of these beautiful things. We can, change the lands and we can civilize them. This is what God wants us to do. This is what we need to do. And this is what we essentially we're put on this earth to do. So there's a sense of providence they talk about. Providence is like God wants us to do this, right? So one idea is God wants us to do it, right? And also we are going to be spreading liberty or democracy and self-government. Like this is going to be amazing. It is our destiny. It is almost like predetermined that this is what we need to do. So it is, this is what we have to do. John L. Sullivan in 1845 and 1830s, this is a major thing. It is tied with the Texas Revolution because there's this feeling that it is a good thing for white folks, especially white Americans, to go into places that were not theirs. Texas was a part of Mexico. Mexico originally was like, hey, come on in. We want y'all to come as long as you, speak Spanish, turn into Catholicism, don't bring slaves. But they don't listen, right? They just bring their way of life with them to Texas. And because there's a lot of tensions with Mexico, they are going to declare independence, right? So manifest destiny is, this is literally, when you do manifest destiny and do a search, this is the thing that comes up. Come on, buddy. All right. So what we have, this lady, is she an angel? Probably not. The title is American Progress. She is just kind of a representation of America. Here, many people don't know this, but this is not a Bible. This is a book. And she has in her hand a telegraph. Right? It doesn't look like telegraph, but whatever, right? This is, that kind of Morse code message, right? It can be sent across. So we have communication. The kind of spear point of this are the pioneers, right? And their little covered wagons, and the farmers. These are the pioneers, right? What's coming behind her is the train, progress, civilization. What is over here are the cities. We are connecting the nation. We are bringing the light, right? Whenever you're analyzing a painting, look for what is light, what is dark, and what is in the dark. These poor guys, these like Native Americans. I don't know if I can like zoom in. Oh, I can. Right? These guys, these Native Americans are running away into the dark. I think my favorite part, you can't see him. He's over here. This is like a little bear. He's like, ah. Anyway, you can't really see it very well. Oh, sorry. So anyway, light, dark, we are good. We are civilization. We are everything awesome. This literally is the picture of Manifest Destiny. If you get it on multiple choice, just like look for the option Manifest Destiny. It is the thing. Bringing the light, bringing civilization, bringing education, democracy, civilization, progress. Driving out the darkness, driving out uncivilized things, driving out the wilderness. We are good. John O'Sullivan saw, right, Texas as like part of our right? We need to do that. Oregon is another part of Manifest Destiny. Texas is kind of like the slavery Manifest Destiny, and Oregon is like the white people Manifest Destiny. Let's see. So, let's see. Anyway, this is the Oregon Trail, and Oregon is up here, right? Oregon is shared by England. It is disputed. And essentially there's an idea that if we bring in the numbers, right, it's like possession is half the law. So people are being driven up to Oregon originally because then we're going to have access to the Pacific Ocean. So an economic incentive for Manifest Destiny if we want to have access to the ocean. So people are going to Oregon because there's lack of opportunity at that time. And lots of people are doing it. The thing about Oregon is there is not slavery in Oregon, but there's also like no black people. Well, there's very few black people in Oregon as well. So we can't think that just because a place is free that it's like has social justice. Literally in Oregon, they were like, no black person can come here. If anyone moved to Oregon, they would actually flog them every 6 months until they left for any black person. So they want white people for Oregon. This is their idea of their destiny, and it does not include black folks. This is kind of off topic, but what's also happening in the 1830s as people are envisioning Manifest Destiny is we're also getting the rise of radical abolitionism. We talked about this before with William Lloyd Garrison. All of this should be a review. So we have Oregon Fever, Manifest Destiny, people moving west again up into Oregon. Boop. So up here, right, this is Oregon. Woo. Right? And so once we get there, we're going to have access to the oceans. And once we get there, we will have access to trade with Asia. But people are moving also because they just feel like it's their patriotic duty. Like, do it for America, right? Do it because if America takes over Oregon, then England can't say it's hers. So if we move here, obviously possession is half the law. If we're there, it's not England, it's us, right? So anyway, let's go. You guys looked at Latinos in America. Hopefully you enjoyed it. I don't know. I think it has a good perspective last time. So again, few people lived in Texas, and then Mexico asked us to move there, or asked Anglos to move there. And they try to ban immigration, or they basically try to crack down on immigration. They try to crack down on slavery, and then people are going to rebel. I think, the major, if you remember one thing from the video, it's to remember Juan Seguin as an example of somebody who, like, the border crossed them, right? He was a Mexican, and then he was a Texan, and then he is an American. And as he moved through those times, like, he helped create the state of Texas. He did not like Mexico. He was all for it. But then once it became a part of America and as it became more Anglo, he was discriminated against and basically had to run away. He lost all of his lands. So even under, under the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, he was supposed to maintain his lands, but that is not what indeed happened. So this guy is Polk. I think he looks like Malfoy, but yeah, Draco Malfoy's dad, maybe. I don't know. Who is he? They call him a dark horse candidate. Why? I don't know. People didn't think he was going to win. He kind of came out of nowhere. The reason why he won is because he did two things. He said, we should take Oregon and we should take Texas. This is like a win-win. This one people liked who were against slavery, and this people who were for slavery like this, which makes him popular, right? So he wins on this idea of, let's take both. Let's take both Oregon and Texas. So Texas actually gets annexed before Polk becomes president. Technically, it's under Tyler. Now, here's the weird part. So this is the Nueces River. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. Anyway, right? This is the river. And so Mexico believed that essentially this was all still Mexico. Like, this should be Mexico. They believed that when they signed a treaty with Texas, it only went to here. So they essentially were like, okay, the United States, here's Texas, go ahead and take it. I don't know if this makes sense, right? Now, what United States thought was that all of this was, they thought all of this was Texas. So the United States was like, no, this is all Texas. So we should be able to take all of this all the way to the Rio Grande. So essentially it's a matter of like which river, the Nueces or the Rio Grande. There is a disputed area and it is confusing. All right, this will come up later. And it might make more sense later or might still not make any sense. All right. So we annex Texas under Tyler. And when Polk becomes president, he had said, we are going to go all the way 54-40 or fight. He said, Oregon, we should go all the way up here or we should fight. We would have had this little like hump back into like Canada, but he negotiates on the treaty line here. So he's going to annex Oregon, right? He does that with England. So he settles that dispute with England. And then he's focusing on Texas. When he focuses on Texas, it has everything to do with the disputed territory. So, again, this is the disputed territory. What he's going to do is he's going to put troops. Oh, wait. No, he's going to put troops here. Sorry. Right? He's going to put troops just inside what is the disputed territory. So Mexico looks and they are like, you are just taunting us, right? This is just on the other side of the river. You are setting up camp in the disputed territory. So what is Mexico going to do? They are going to attack, right? So essentially what Polk does is he sets up these troops. Oh no, actually it is down there. Go back. Okay, hold on. Let me do this again. He sets up troops down here, and he's like, look where I am. I'm in my land. And they're like, wait, that's not your land. We are going to attack. Let's take them out, right? Mexico was attacking what they believed was their land. So anyway, confusing, yes. So we set up troops in the disputed territory. We get attacked, and then Polk is like, this was an act of aggression. We are going to go to war. So Mexico has passed the boundary of the United States. This is Polk's war message. She has invaded our territory, shed American blood on American soil. She has proclaimed hostilities that have commenced, right? And now we're going to war. So Polk set it up. We go to war. And a lot of people who are Whigs, who are the Northerners, oppose the war. Transcendentalists like Thoreau and civil disobedience hate the war as well. You have to think, they know that when we get Texas and all of these lands, they're going to lose political power. But politically, technologically, the United States has a lot of advantages. So we have better rifles, handguns, telegraph, artillery. We have a much bigger population. We have a growing economy. Mexico is in debt. They just recently got free from Spain. The U.S. soldiers are mostly made up of immigrants. And the Mexicans try to appeal to Catholics to get them on their side. But the United States has all these advantages. So sometimes people kind of look at these statistics and they're like, this is an act of imperialism because it is one stronger country taking over a weaker country. There are a lot of deaths during this war, but all in all, it goes really well. And I think one thing to remember is that the troops go all the way to Mexico City. So you could consider this. The United States could have taken over all of Mexico. We probably could have occupied the whole country if we really wanted to, but we don't. We take what is considered the unoccupied areas. And obviously these can be, why is this doing this? Go on. Obviously these can be, disputed. It is not unoccupied. We have Native Americans there. We have Mexican Americans there. You saw in the movie also examples of people who are in California whose property is going to get taken over. Native Americans we'll be kind of refocusing on later. So there are people there. But what they saw is that this is largely unpopulated, including Texas. So we're going to take this area, and this is what we're going to manifest our destiny. To the United States, they're kind of we don't want to take over Mexico. We don't want to occupy people who don't want to be occupied. And I think the other thing to consider is, California is going to become a state. Texas is going to become a state. If you wanted to say it wasn't imperialism, you're well, we don't treat California any different than we treat, New England, Massachusetts. We don't treat Texas any different. They are equal, right? They have equal power as a state. Now, the people in the states, though, if we take a look at what happens in reality to the rights of, Mexicans who live there, obviously they are discriminated against, and that could be imperialism. Under the treaty, they were supposed to be treated equally, but in reality, they are not. So anyway, we take over this Mexican cession. If you want to look at more examples of, how people are treated and how, they should have been treated, there's a concept at the border crossed us. These are people who were Mexican, and then they were Texans, and then they are Americans, and they have never moved. You can look at some of these if you want to go through the PowerPoint or the slideshow yourself. But this is kind of what I wanted to focus on is slavery, right? The major problem is the same problem that had every other time we have expanded. What are we going to do with these lands? Are they going to be slave or are they going to be free? And what's going to happen in 1854 is the Free Soil Party is going to develop, and their idea is no expansion of slavery. We want free labor for free men for free soil. Notice this is not an abolitionist party. It is just we want free labor in these lands. The example of this is called the Wilmot Proviso, which basically said slavery will not be in these lands. Anything we get from Mexico will be free and there will be no slavery. This is highly controversial, and I think it starts to show how the free states are gaining political power because, it passes in the House, but the Senate is going to block it. Now, again, the population is in the North. The population is in the free states. But as far as equal number of states, the South is able to block it. But it shows that the political power is moving. The Wilmot Proviso causes tensions, and what is going to happen is there's going to be a compromise of 1850. This is our kind of last-ditch effort to try to solve the issues of slavery as we have done before to come to this compromise. And it's almost like an example of a thing where like it's a compromise where nobody is happy. So there's a little bit of everything for everyone. In this, New Mexico and Utah are going to have popular sovereignty where they get to choose whether to be free or a slave. So this is kind of a compromise between the two. There is a stronger Fugitive Slave Act, which is what the South wanted, which is going to kind of basically require the authorities in free states to return enslaved people to their masters with like no trial. It's going to get rid of a lot of this freedom of them. And slave trade in D.C. is abolished. So the abolitionists are happy about that, but they're extraordinarily upset about the stronger fugitive slave law. The North starts to get really upset about this Fugitive Slave Act. They see it as a violation of their sovereignty. Before, free people of color could move up north, but now, once they pass in 1850 the stronger Fugitive Slave Act, it's like anybody could go up north and take anybody. So you have people like Frederick Douglass writing books who ran away. This is infuriating the South. And so what's going to happen is they're like, technically under the Constitution, you should have returned him. But the North would protect them. They would have these like local trials that would free them. And so under this, people had to basically go to Canada. Free people of color had to go to Canada because essentially you could have no free people of color in the North. They were open to being kidnapped by the South. I'm going to skip that. This is going to lead to like Uncle Tom's Cabin. This is a work of fiction. It is a very sensationalized book. Or I guess sentimental might be a better word. Where Harriet Beecher Stowe is inspired by the Fugitive Slave Act to do something about it, and she writes this book. I think that the big thing is what she's actually increasing is abolitionist sentiment. She is really trying to make the case that this is slavery is bad. Like, slavery is bad. We should get rid of it. It's an evil. It's not good. Not just we want free labor. We actually want to get rid of slavery. This is also going to lead to the KansasNebraska Act, which is kind of its own separate thing, actually. So in 1854, this is really... You're going to have the railroad was supposed to go south through the Gadsden Purchase. So if I go back here, the railroad was supposed to go through here. It probably would have ended up like in New Orleans, actually. So we bought that land, and the railroad was supposed to go south. But the North wanted to have the railroad go up north. So Douglas is going to... he's a senator in Illinois. And he is going to basically say, listen, South, if you let us get the Transcontinental Railroad, you will get this, the land that was closed to slavery under the Missouri Compromise. All of this will be open to slavery. So before there was no slavery here, and now we're like, yes, slavery, right? Or at least it will be popular sovereignty. And so now all this territory is going to be open to slavery because we're going to get a train that is going to Illinois. Yeah? Okay. Anyway. Let's go to... This is going to lead to Bleeding Kansas. I don't know. So essentially, it gets so bad because we are going to open up slavery. Let's see if I have a map. In Kansas to slavery. And essentially what happens is people in Missouri are going to flood into Kansas to vote. So on the day that Kansas is supposed to vote, it is flooded by people from Missouri who are slave owners with guns, basically forcing the vote for slavery. So we have one constitution that is for slavery. Later, there is another vote, which allows some of the non-slave, the free people to vote, which is what a lot of people in Kansas were. And there's another vote, and that one says it should be free. So you have one constitution saying it should be slave, one saying it should be free, and then essentially... the Congress has to basically decide which constitution they are going to pick. This is going to lead to people being beaten on the floor of the House. And it is a terrible thing. And the Republican Party is essentially going to form after the Kansas-Nebraska Act in because they are basically opposing what they say is a slave power conspiracy. So the North is unifying under the Republican Party, which is about this Free Soil Party. This is probably the weirdest cartoon ever, but it always shows up, so we need to go over it. This is a 1856 cartoon, Free Soil, No Extension of Slavery. This is a Republican cartoon. This says Democratic Platform, Kansas, Cuba. These are the Democrats, right? And they're holding down a white dude, and he is the one who's saying, murder my poor wife, right? And so these are the Democrats shoving a black person down this poor white dude's throat. You're supposed to feel sympathetic for him, even though he looks evil. And they don't care about this black guy. All they're saying is, like, don't shove slavery down our throat. The original Republican Party is not an abolitionist party, right? All they want is not to have black people shoved down their throat. That is essentially what this is saying. Anyway. Dred Scott is going to further tensions because essentially it's going to say that black people are not citizens, and the country cannot stop the national government cannot stop slavery. So all of these things are happening. They are further dividing the nation because essentially all of these things are going towards what they call the slave power conspiracy. This is going to make this dude really mad. And he's essentially like, why is it that, the slave power are the ones who always take up guns? Why don't the abolitionists take up guns? And John Brown is this white guy. He is going to try to create a slave rebellion by attacking Harper's Ferry. His idea is that he is going to go into Harper's Ferry. He's going to seize a bunch of weapons, and then he's going to kind of go out. He's going to get enslaved people to uprise. He's going to give them weapons, and it'll be like a snowball. It'll take over all of the South. It doesn't work out very well. He is going to get caught, and he is going to get hanged, and he is going to become a martyr in the North, and he is going to be, the South is essentially like, we knew you were trying to, like, murder us all along. This is going to lead to the election of 1860. Almost immediately after the election of 1860, Lincoln is going to be elected. He is a Republican, and the South does not even wait for him to take office. They are going to leave, and they're going to secede. So that is the election of 1860. That is essentially the end of the presentation. I hope you guys are doing well. I'm going to post up an assignment. It is essentially going to be to do a short answer for classwork, and then for homework, I'm just going to give you one of these events to really sort of focus on. Why did it lead to the Civil War? So take a look at those two things. If you have any questions, I'll have office hours on Monday at 11 o'clock to noon. All right. Hope you guys are doing well.